In 2026, as peace talks with Ukraine dragged on, Vladimir Putin rejected the idea of territorial concessions outright. For Russia, this was never really a negotiating position on Crimea specifically. The peninsula stopped being a question in Moscow's eyes back in 2014. To understand why Russia treats this as closed, you have to go back further than most people think. Not to 2014, but to 1783. In April 1783, Catherine the Great issued a manifesto annexing Crimea, along with Taman and Kuban, into the Russian Empire. Her general, Grigory Potemkin, had pushed for it for one reason above all: access to the Black Sea. Catherine promised Crimea's residents their property, their temples, and their faith would be protected. To Russia, this is where the region's story with Moscow actually begins, not in the 20th century, but in the 18th. Sevastopol carries more symbolic weight than any other part of Crimea. Russian Orthodox tradition holds that Prince Vladimir of Kiev was baptized nearby at Chersonesus in the 10th century, the founding event of Russian Christianity itself. Sevastopol has been home to Russia's Black Sea Fleet since the 18th century, and its soil holds the graves of Russian soldiers from 2 centuries of wars fought to hold it. In Russia's telling, this isn't a naval base, it's sacred ground. In 1954, Nikita Khrushchev transferred Crimea from Russia's jurisdiction to Ukraine's, inside the Soviet Union. In his own 2014 speech, Putin called this decision made in violation of constitutional norms. Behind the scenes, in a totalitarian state, residents of Crimea, he said, were never asked. At the time, it barely mattered. Both republics were inside the same country. Russia's argument is that the transfer was only ever tolerable because the border was internal, and that everything changed the moment it wasn't. When the Soviet Union dissolved in 1991, that internal line became an international border overnight. In the same 2014 speech, Putin put it directly: Russia and Ukraine are one people. Millions of ethnic Russians in Crimea and across Ukraine in this framing woke up as citizens of a foreign country without ever moving. For decades after, Russia's Black Sea Fleet kept operating out of Sevastopol anyway, under a 1997 treaty leasing the base from Ukraine through 2017, later extended to 2042 by the 2010 Kharkiv Accords. Russia never really let go of the peninsula, even on paper. In March 2014, armed men without insignia secured Crimea's parliament and government buildings. Weeks later, a referendum was held on joining Russia. Putin's own description of it was unambiguous: a vote conducted in full compliance with democratic procedures and rules of international law, with results he called very convincing. Within days, Russia's parliament ratified the annexation treaty. To Moscow, this wasn't a seizure. It was a correction: Crimea, and the Russians living there, coming home. Since then, Russia has built a bridge across the Kerch Strait, connected Crimea to its power grid and rail network, and folded the 2014 referendum into its national calendar as a holiday. 12 years later, when asked to put Crimea back on the table, Putin's answer is still the same one Catherine the Great might have recognized. This was never really a question. Ukraine tells the same 100 years as an occupation from the very first page. That's next.